So it smelled like a combination of diesel and feces. And it was very, very strong, putrid. And my dog is going crazy. And I yank on the leash and I look around the corner and here it comes. And the dog freezes. The dog's not a pointer, but like a pointer dog does, freezes. And I stand there. I don't scream. I don't do anything. I am filled with terror. And it walks by me and solid. I mean, it was, but humanoid in nature. You know, like being around any animal in the world. It wasn't fading in and out of dimensions or any of this kind of stuff.
The history of our Earth is so different from what we can imagine.
The Smithsonian, that if they found out about a large skeleton somewhere, was to go get it.
I'm going to assume at least one person is right, because if one person's right, it busts the paradigm. It all goes back to the fallen cherub. And the problem with the modern day church, they have a very truncated view of the supernatural.
This backdrop that's just pregnant with all kinds of meaning associated with this Mount Hermon event.
Welcome to Blurry Creatures.
And this guy defects from the kingdom. That's a big deal.
All right, welcome back to the Blurry Creatures. Sometimes we talk about Sasquatch. And today?
It's like that meme, Nate. Is this the Bigfoot show?
Yeah.
Well, no. And yes.
Exactly. I mean, we talk about Bigfoot just enough. When you get bored, we bring it back up again.
What's the gateway drug? It's like you got to go back and revisit every once in a while, right? Remind yourself why you got into this space.
That's right. We have a lot. You know, you meet people. You bring people on your show. They tell their friends. And Tim's like, you got to bring Mancow on, tell him this Bigfoot encounter. And Mancow had a long encounter. He's a famous radio DJ from the Chicago area.
Mancow Muller. And he's a character. Yeah, we met at the Birthright Conference with Tim Alberino.
So we're going to interview Mancow, talk about his Sasquatch encounter, a long Sasquatch encounter. Some people just briefly see these things. Mancow was having tea with him in the woods.
It feels kind of good to get back to the roots a little bit. We haven't done a real good Sasquatch episode in a while, so this will be fun.
Yeah.
We need to go back and visit a few. We talked about this the other day, Nate. I think it might not be a bad idea, and we'll tease this right now, to go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And grab a few of our very, very early on guests and just get an update. Right? What's going on? What's going on in those woods?
Yeah, it's like Return to Snowy River, but this is the Sasquatch edition.
Much more hairy.
Wasn't that an 80s movie?
Dude, yeah. I think my grandma had it. I remember it was like a double VHS.
The Man from Snowy River.
Yeah, that's what, yes,
Return to Snowy River was later.
Was it? They went back.
It's probably a bad film, and everyone's going to call us out.
I can tell you this. It's no water world. That's okay.
It's no water. Yeah, so, hey, you know what? Just when you get bored of our show, we make it spicy again. We go back to our roots, talking about the big guy. If you want to become a member of the show and help us spend more time on these episodes and do all fun things and create more of the blur your eyes out, go to blurrycreatures.com/members. Become a member of the show.
And you can be a blurrito.
Yeah. No, blurrito, we know, is different. Blurrito is when you have a jam-packed episode.
Oh.
That's the blurrito.
And it's just like the full blurrito.
A blurriver is someone who's full blurry. A blurrito is just one heavy episode. Just so you know.
Load it up.
That's the terminology in the spaces, in the members groups. See, these are the things you'll learn if you become a member. You get into the members access areas, and you'll learn things like the blurritos. And the blurryverse. So come on down.
Sponsor the show with extra episodes. You get discounts on merch. You get first in line for tickets to events, whether it be a barbecue we're having to kick off the summer, or one of our big events like BlurryCon. A lot of perks. A lot of perks for a few dollars a month. You can support what Nate and I are doing, and we're grateful to all of our members. Thanks for being on this journey and on this ride. And we're going back to the beginning a little bit here.
Back to the blur.
So
our next members chat will be on, it looks like we have it on the calendar, April 27th. I don't know if you know that, Luke, but it's on the calendar.
See if this episode is out by then.
No, it's going to come out tomorrow. Actually, right now. So sign up, become a member of the show. This week we have a special members-only episode that I am working on about the women in white. We're putting that together for a special members-only episode. Look for that this week. BlurryCreatures.com/members. Become a member of the podcast. All right, let's get Mancow on this one.
Get him on.
We do an intro for every guest. We talk a lot of theology, ancient history, alternate history, creatures, all kinds of things. So welcome to the show, Mancow. Yeah, you're an American radio, TV personality, and we ask all of our guests at the top of the show. I'm sure we could talk about this the whole episode. Mancow, what are your thoughts on Bigfoot?
Well, I mean, that is going to be the whole show.
Right. So just like maybe just a brief overview. What are your thoughts on what Bigfoot is?
What do you think it is? And then you can tell us.
I think it's a, you said the word, I think it's a creature. I think it's a creature like us or like anything else.
Yeah.
A bear or a monkey or a puma. There was a great article when I was a kid. One of the Bee Gees saw Bigfoot. And then at the end, and I was excited to read it. And then at the end, he says, could have been a puma. And I thought, well, it's probably a puma. And I would like to say some things right off to start this time with you. And that is, I was a young guy when it happened, but I lived in those woods. And I was also what we would call a monster kid. A lot of people know what that is. You guys know what that means? Now, that is before your time.
It is before our time.
But these were people that read Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. And I also read Starlog. And I had an imagination, but I also knew what makeup was and was into it. There was a movie called Funhouse that had great makeup. And I was really into the latex appliances and everything. And what I saw was not that. It wasn't a man in a suit. It wasn't a guy in a monkey suit. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't, from the movie Prophecy, a deformed bear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This was a living creature, and it was solid and it was flesh, and it was not some guy in makeup. I would and did know the difference. So let me say that right up front.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, and so you're friends with Tim Alberino, and Tim called us up and said, "Dude, you gotta hear this encounter." Did you tell Tim your encounter, or you didn't tell me the encounter? So I don't know.
I don't think I have told Timothy my encounter. I am on my way to Peru here to do some digging, which is not really my thing, but I've been inspired by Timothy. I think that book is one of the great reads of the last so many years. I'm reading a book right now about CIA and Charles Manson, which is also very good. But there was a Raytown, Missouri, which is a sprawling car lot, but it was just being built up as suburbia, on the outskirts of Kansas City, Missouri. It was near a town called Knob Noster, which is exactly like it sounds like. Just think about what that sounds like. Yeah. And it's the bald knobber territory. And bald knobbers would go into these hilly areas and the Native Americans before that, and there would be hills that they cleared, and they would live up there. I call it Steal Your Dollar City, but Silver Dollar City used to have what looked like Klansmen. They were not Klansmen. They were bald knobbers, which is a different deal, but they would disguise themselves, and they were in those woods long before I got there. But there was remnants of Native Americans, remnants of bald knobbers, remnants of hermits and stuff going on. And there was a sea circular of rock, sea formation of these big rocks that were probably 2 stories tall. And again, I would run through those woods barefoot. And we're talking 1977 or 1978. And I had my trusty Cocker Spaniel with me. Stop me anytime.
No, it's good.
So you're 10 years old at the time, though, right? You're 10?
Probably a little older, probably 11 or 12. But it was summertime. It was hot. It would have been just newly summer because every year we went down to fix up this thing that we made into a fort, this formation of rocks. And I was down there with a Hudson Bay axe, which I thought was very cool, like a mountain man, and cut down these little saplings, and we'd make a roof and then cover it with leaves. And every year the snow would come and it would all cave in, and and I was cleaning it up, waiting for some friends. So, but what I wanted to say again before we really get into it is I didn't think it was anything significant. The people behind Ancient Aliens, one of my best friends of my lifetime, Kevin Burns, did that. He did The Girls Next Door. He got an Oscar for a Barbra Streisand movie and some other things. He also created the Biography Channel. And he was one of my very dear friends. And he heard the story numerous times. They were going to do an episode on it. I'm also the guy that put him together with Shatner to do this show. I think it's called The Unexplained.
It's a great show.
Shatner's at my wedding. He's a friend of mine. There he is behind me.
Young, not the 90-year-old version.
No, but what an amazing individual. Yeah. But so I'm dropping names, but I want to give you the setup. I have told this story. I have talked about it. I never talked about it on a radio show, and I don't know why, but people have known about it. It was going to be an episode of one of these shows, and they kind of had it in their back pocket, and Kevin Burns passed away. Anyway, so I told Timothy this, and he was very excited about your show and this show. And he's like, I said, I had an encounter. And a guy called me, and he's writing a book about Bigfoot. And I hadn't thought about it. And somehow through the Missouri grapevine, again, small town USA, heard the story. I know you're anxious to get the story.
No.
I want to also say that I can do the noise it makes, but I can only do it once. And I haven't done it very well for many years. I could nail it as a kid.
We're going to make you do it. You're going to give it your best shot.
Well, no, it'll be the last thing, and then it'll blow up my voice, I would imagine. I'm going to tell you the man's name who's writing a book. Why? Just so you may know him. What do you call this when you study these types of creatures? It's got a name, right?
Cryptozoologist, yeah.
So good. It's a great word, isn't it? He's a cryptozoologist and other things. Interesting guy.
Mm-hmm.
His name is John Wingate.
Okay.
Do you know that name?
No.
Do not.
Maybe that's a future guest for you.
All right.
Is he writing a book on cryptids or Bigfoot, or what's his?
He's writing a book on Bigfoot, and I think he's also focusing on. There was some talk that John Wayne Gacy in the Missouri area and some other areas may have killed some kids.
Interesting.
And there was a famous cave-in. I read a book about this. That he wrote a famous cave-in and kids, again, before my time and before your time. This one, both of these. But there was a cave-in in wherever Becky Thatcher and Mark Twain was, and it was the story of the world. This cave-in and these missing kids, and he has come to believe that they were murdered. And he wrote a book about the serial killer. And then he also has another in his research. He found out that John Wayne Gacy traveled America when he worked for KFC, and there may have been and there's similar murders throughout America, including Missouri. I know, long-winded. And then he heard about through the grapevine that this local boy that did good, this Mancow, which is my radio name, 330 stations on the Fox News Channel every day for 7 years, highest rated segment, blah, blah, blah. This could be interesting from a Bigfoot book. I thought it was stupid for me to talk about. It's kind of silly for me to talk about here, I guess, but I'll go into it. And then after he talked with me, and he had some crazy ideas, and actually talking with you fellas before we did this tonight, I think you guys have some crazy ideas about what you think it is, because I don't agree with a lot of what people think, and we'll go into that. I hope that's why I want to do this.
Yeah.
But where am I going with this?
You were just setting it all up. Yeah.
So as I'm reading about Bigfoot, the encounters are brief. Mine was the longest ever, but it's not exciting. But it was a long encounter. So I'm tossing any questions before I go on.
Yeah. So, I mean, are you by yourself? You're 12.
I'm by myself.
You're 12 years old. How far away
I'm
from
waiting for a couple of friends, 12, 13.
You're pretty close to home?
Half mile.
Okay.
Half mile. And I live there. I mean, I was there every day.
Yeah.
That's where I roamed. We had horses, and I would leave for 9 days at a time. And I think at 8 and 9 years old, I would leave as a kid, and I would have, I know people are going, get to it. But, I would have the beanie weenies or Vienna sausages and granola, and I thought I was camping. And really, in retrespect, I think, my God, my parents were horrible.
It's different time, though, right? I mean, think about that.
No, it was a different era.
Yeah.
It was a different era, and they were not by those standards anything out of the ordinary. It was a middle-class neighborhood. And they were middle class. We were middle class. Okay. So I smell my dog. I have a Cocker Spaniel, an overweight Cocker Spaniel named Happy. He's on a horse lead. We had horses. He's on a horse lead instead of a dog leash. It's a longer leash. He's around the corner of this rock. And it's essentially a cave without a roof. And I'm throwing these branches up and throwing them up from other cliffs on top of it. And we, hit and miss until you have a thatch roof. And I smell something that, it was during the energy crisis. My father kept diesel fuel. Do you know the old joke about my grandfather was a diesel fitter in World War II? He would hold up underwear outside the Victoria's Secret and go, diesel fitter. But anyway, we had a tank of, this was the time of gas lines and everything else, or at least that's when it started for my father. So he kept diesel in a big tank in our backyard, probably illegal. But I knew the smell of diesel. He had a diesel burning Mercedes-Benz. So it smelled like a combination of diesel and feces. And it was very, very strong, putrid. And my dog is going crazy. And I yank on the leash and I look around the corner and here it comes. And the dog freezes. The dog's not a pointer, but like a pointer dog does. freezes, and I stand there. I don't scream. I don't do anything. I am filled with terror, which changes, and it walks by me, and there's a tree, and it grabs a leaf and looks at it, leaves it on leaves the leaf on the tree, and then walks around the big rock, and I'm watching it very leisurely, never takes notice of me, never sees me. And it is brown furred, dark brown fur. It is a humanoid face. It is not an ape face. It's not a bear face. Hair here, hair here. People have sent me pictures. This guy has sent me pictures. Can you identify it? This is other sightings. And I haven't seen anything that really looks exactly like it, but humanoid in nature and solid. I mean, it was like being around any animal in the world. It wasn't fading in and out of dimensions or any of this kind of stuff.
Did it acknowledge or see your dog? Is he happy, or is it just oblivious to everything that was going on?
It did not. It may have looked down. I seem to remember it looking down, like as it passed by, but not much of a. I mean, the dog was going crazy, and then when this thing appeared, it didn't appear. I don't want to say that, but as it was walking up. As it walked up to our little encampment there, no real reaction.
How far is this from you? 10 yards? 20 yards?
Oh, no, brother, right as close as you are to me with this camera.
Wow.
I mean, it's right there. And I'm frozen.
Yeah.
And it looks at the leaf and it studies the leaf. It doesn't make any noise. Not yet. Studies the leaf. And then, and I thought it was studying it to eat it. And it then went around and then it went down the hill. It's what we would say in Missouri, a gully. So it goes down to the gully. There's a little stream that I could jump, that I did jump many times. And it did a 2 feet together, boom, and it could jump, but it was a hop. It wasn't a step, it was a hop. And then looked around and there's another hill going up, and we're in, again, I hate to use Missouri words, but we're in what's called a holler. You guys know what that is?
Oh yeah, we're in Tennessee.
So well, there, of course. Yeah. So we're in a holler, and it lets out this noise, and then runs off. And I that's when I lost sight of it. But it was not in any hurry. It obviously did not feel threatened by me at all. And I felt fear only at the beginning. I felt fear the entire time, but I was at no time was it threatening in any way.
It's wild. It's wild.
And that's the entire story. And I did talk to the author about this, but I've never told this story before. And I was saving it for this TV show.
Yeah. How tall was this thing?
Oh, 7 or 8. I mean, I was younger. There's a great moment when Billy Mooney, the kid from the TV show Lost in Space, shows up on the set to do a reunion show and tells everybody, this is all wrong. Everything's so small.
Yeah.
And they said, Billy, you were 10. Jonathan Harris, a great actor. So 7 or 8 feet tall. I mean, it was big. I ran home with great excitement to tell my family, and my dad said it was Meadowlark. You saw Meadowlark Lemon, and who was a Harlem Globetrotter.
The Globetrotters are in town.
Yeah, and it was a big joke. And my brothers were quite awful, and they still are quite awful, but very cruel to me. And it was a big joke. Hey, I saw Meadowlark Lemon. Do you give me an autograph? Basketball, that kind of thing. And I didn't talk about it. And my other friends that came down to the woods wanted to see it with me, and we still spent the same amount of time there. It didn't keep me out of the woods. Yeah.
Did it leave footprints or anything? And how long, Mancow, how long this whole experience? Would you say 30 seconds or?
No. Several minutes.
Okay.
And I mean, it was like a sightseer walking on the
cruising.
hill.
Just slow walk.
Slow walk. And, copperheads we were terrified of, which is a snake.
Yeah.
But I had more fear seeing a little copperhead than I did with this thing.
Wow.
And because we're talking cliffs, and there was land between the cliffs, but these cliffs were, 2 stories high.
Yeah.
And they would fill with leaves, which we would then throughout the early months of summer burn them off in our fires, and we would use them as I had a rake. We would cover the roof, but it was thick leaves, man. And so there was no mud, and I didn't go down to the, I wasn't at that point in my life where I would think, I should get a plaster print of this. It was, what we had heard stories about these things, and they were called Momo.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that before?
Yeah.
So in Missouri, I didn't know Sasquatch or Bigfoot or anything of that. I guess eventually I did because of $6 Million Man. But
yes.
At that time, you saw Momo.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they call them different things in different states. They call them like the
Right.
grass man in Ohio and stuff like that.
The grass man.
And like the skunk ape in Florida and all that.
Skunk ape. Skunk ape. I've heard of that one. Grass man was the guy I bought my weed
Yeah,
from.
right.
No, and I wasn't
Gas
high.
man.
I wasn't high or drunk.
Was it near?
The gas man.
Would you back up to any like private wild land or any like forest land or is like open?
You know, I don't know. I was back there recently, and it's there's a lot of trash there now. The neighborhood has turned, and we really cherish those woods. And the new folks that moved in don't seem to cherish the land as much. There was graffiti on the cliffs, which is just so repulsive to me. But
and you're standing inside of the rocks when this.
No,
Oh.
well, I'm standing in a. I'm not
Like in the doorway of the cave, or
no, not like that at all. So there's
He's drawing us. He's drawing.
Yeah.
He's drawing a
Yeah.
Sasquatch, Luke. We're gonna put it on a shirt.
yes.
no, I can't do that. But so you've got, this is really bad, but you've got
Looks like
a cliff here that's up 2 stories, and you got these big rocks that have fallen from whenever a million years ago, and then we covered them with
Right.
thatch, and we would go in here and we'd have a little fire out here.
Fort.
This is the stream down here. This thing came around like this, and I was over here. This is it's not exactly right. It was shifted a little bit more, but I was not standing in the entrance of the cave. I was outside but getting these.
okay. I see. You were building the fort.
I was building a
So
fort.
were you above this then? Is that from you talking about there being a second story?
No,
okay.
no.
You're
There's
on ground level.
2 rocks, but plenty of space. Not tight.
Right.
Plenty of space, and this thing just leisurely came by.
Why do you think he put out the smell? What did he just?
That is another thing I want to tell you. I for some reason, probably the strongest memory I have is because on my Cocker Spaniel, I would pull off hair. It would
Shed.
yeah. I want to say mange or molt
Right.
or whatever. That's not the right word.
Yeah.
But it had. This is also, I don't think it's some advanced creature that some people think. I mean, it had waste on its backside, and it had leaves hanging. It had its fur was matted, and it was not clean. And it had certainly back there, and it had strings of lighter hair that were falling off from the warmer weather.
So it was shedding its winter coat.
Shedding, but big. This big patches hanging, like you could just go up and pull it off. And then around its backside, and I don't want to be gross. I don't know what your rules are here on the show, but at the time, I mean, I'm thinking, well, that's like a dog sitting it or a cat. I mean, it looked like waste, and it was caked into it, and it smelled like it, and leaves where it had been sitting.
They've been wiping so good in the forest.
All right. So Bigfoot's got dingleberries.
Yeah, right.
So, but that really struck me.
Yeah.
And then it had humanoid hands, and it was, there was intelligence there when it was looking at the leaf. It was, again, it didn't make that noise, but that was so if you want to make the argument that they're from another planet or from another dimension, it certainly did look at the leaf not like a cow or something would just start eating it. It studied the
I
leaf.
was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's looking for some good teepee. If it's having some issues in the backside.
I don't think that was
Okay.
it. This was, yeah. Do you follow what I'm saying, though?
Yeah.
I mean, it was
No,
It's like
Totally.
inquisitive, right? It's kind of like it's
and then you would think, well, if this thing is native to those woods, wouldn't it know that tree?
yeah.
So
Well, usually they know people are there too. I mean,
this had no, maybe it knew I was there and,
didn't care.
Obviously felt no threat.
With kids too, there's interesting Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Momo in this case stories where it's a little different with kids and women. They like women's voices and kids' voices, Nate, right? Like they just sort of anecdotally.
Well, kids and women see them fairly often.
Yeah, it's almost like there's
Wow.
it seems to be a lack of threat there, right? They're not worried about 11, 12-year-old Mancow packing heat. No, you might have been, but maybe it wasn't so worried.
At that time I could have been, and this time I'm packing still to this
Yeah,
day.
right, same here.
And I would go to those woods sometimes with a little 22.
You had a horse or just your dog?
No.
Okay.
No, I just had my dog with me.
So
We had horses separately. Yeah.
well, was there any like sound pollution out there, or is it just like
No.
it's just absolutely
No, man.
quiet?
This was fresh suburbia. These were new houses there.
Yeah.
There had been nothing there forever, and we were encroaching into these woods. My backyard was not into these woods, and I'm sure it was a park or something. The Army Corps of Engineers would practice in the middle of the woods,
Mm-hmm.
and what that meant is they would build dams and tear them down and build ponds and destroy them.
Bridges and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you say
but that was deeper into the woods.
So 80% of your encounter with this thing, it's just kind of walking leisurely, doesn't really care.
Yeah.
And the last encounter, it kind of goes up the hill, and you said it makes that noise, then it takes off running at the end.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah. So the matted backside, the smell, the leaf, the studying of the leaf, the going down the hill, kind of that. I don't know why I didn't run. As soon as it was out of sight, I grabbed my dog and I ran as quick as I could. But I wasn't paralyzed with fear or anything like that. But I just couldn't believe it. I mean, I just sat there and looked at it, and it was, and big strides. I don't know if that's interesting, and you could see the weight. This was a weighty thing as it went down the hill, and it had to, maneuver the hill and the rocks and brush. And I mean, it was.
You think it was a male?
Yes. I don't know why I think that. I didn't see anything that would tell me it was a man.
What do you think about the Patterson Gimlin film, the in the 60s?
No, it didn't look like that.
Okay. Different.
No, it wasn't that.
That was a female, supposedly. So.
Oh, well, it wasn't that loose.
Let me ask about your dog. Was it typical behavior for your dog? Because you think about dogs in the woods, right? If it was a bear or a person or an animal, I don't know how your dog reacts normally, but my dog, my dog would be barking like sort of even if it was a bear, you'd accept to be a bear, it would be sort of a defense mechanism, right? I think that dog in that case, which I knew that dog so well, what a great dog. But I think in that case, it would have been, do I have a picture of the dog here? No. Come on, where's Happy?
I know, Happy. What a great dog. Thank you. Happy, I think would have been crying in that situation. But the dog was frozen.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
Well, see, they say that's what happens with Sasquatch encounters. See, like everything goes silent. It's like they put out a frequency that shuts everything up, and everything's just you can hear a pin drop. And the hunters say this. Everyone says this. There's just it was like they walk into a bubble, like a sound bubble. But I wonder if they're putting out some kind of frequency that we can't hear, and it just if you're a dog, you can hear it obviously, and you freeze. You don't know what it is, but it also induces a lot of fear in people. And I think that people, they immediately have that panic feeling and they're just like, they can't, but they don't, a lot of people don't have violent encounters with Bigfoot. So it's sort of just it's a paralyzing fear. It sounds like it's kind of a lot of things in there. So
if something's bigger than you, I think that's almost natural.
Well,
right?
that's true. But the weird thing, Mancow, is that they feel it before they see it. So they feel this sense of fear before they even know Bigfoot's there, and then they see the creature. So it's like their systems are alerted to it before they even have a visual sight. And people who don't even believe in this creature, right? So all of a sudden they just feel this panic. They think something's watching them. They turn around, boom, there it is. And it's like it's like their system alerted them before their senses.
Your story is different though in the sense that I feel like people get stalked almost, like where Bigfoot's kind of like either like running parallel. Or the Sasquatch is sort of tracking them, and kind of watching.
Yeah.
And the fact that it almost seems either one, not concerned, or two, oblivious to your presence or to where you're at is interesting to me. Like it's like and the leaf thing is fascinating too because it's almost like it just isn't. I don't know. Like it's kind of in its own world, or it's sort of. It's such an interesting encounter. Like I haven't heard anything like that. Like,
good.
I've heard something like this. There was a hunter that
Nate has. Okay.
Well, I listened to a lot of Sasquatch encounters when I was remodeling houses because I don't know, it's just fascinating.
It's what you do.
It's what I did.
It's what you do. Yeah, it's what you do when you remodel a house. You listen.
So there was this one where this hunter was he was at a distance and he was watching it like this Sasquatch, from my memory, he was injured and he had like a limp. And he was walking under some trees, and they had a long encounter. He was watching it through his scope, and it was just kind of going along, checking trees out, walking around trees. It was just like you described, but it was injured. It was like, so he noticed that it was moving slow because of that. And I wonder, like, if some of them are just more like on the animal scale. They're just perusing around. This
was an animal. I don't know what else you would call it. I mean, I guess I don't think it put out any pheromones or scent. I don't feel like I was in a sound bubble.
Okay.
Not to contradict you guys, but just to clarify. And I don't know if I've ever thought this before, but sitting here with you and thinking about it, the dog did not. I would have thought the dog would have barked for a long time. it was going crazy for quite some time. And, I didn't know what it was. It could have been a squirrel, could have been anything. I wasn't paying that much attention to it.
Before it passed by.
Yeah. I can't imagine this thing. Well, I don't know. Maybe the dog didn't know what it was either, but it didn't seem, the dog was barking. I was like, shut up. And I went over, that's what I was going over to do. The dog was around the rock and I went over to look, and here comes this thing.
Was there any history of this before, or had you even look into that or ever heard of anything like, you say Momo, but that's pretty general when you're talking about Missouri.
No, when I would talk about it, people go, oh, that's Momo. Momo. I'm telling you, yes.
Yeah.
As I had heard stories that other people had seen things, and it was called Momo. That there's a creature.
I can't wait for the noise. And it's anticipation here.
Well, I'm ready when you guys are, but that'll be the end of it.
I have to wait till the end.
I used to be able to nail it, and all that.
It's like I'm expecting like Whitney Houston, man. You're just gonna.
No, that would be great. But the darting again at the bottom of the hill, the jump was very memorable, and then the darting off, and I think it again. Can I add? Can I just? I'm just making stuff up
just
now.
Riff
but
on
just
it,
well, I don't know any of this, but I think it was man. I think it was a man, not a female. I don't think it was a man.
Right.
I think it was whatever it was. It was a male. I was frightened only because it was something new, but again, it was not threatening. And I also feel like it was very old. And I don't know why I think that. It's not like I remember a lot of wrinkles or anything, but I feel like it was an old thing.
It's elderly?
Or
ancient.
And I feel
elderly or ancient, like old, like it's like it was like an old animal, or like it was an ancient thing.
Very good question. And I would have to go with ancient thing.
Okay, interesting.
Now, I want to tell you why I think that.
Tell us.
Which is, again, this is just riffing, guys.
Yeah.
There
are no real good answers, Mancow. So this is all we can do.
But it, I hear these people say it came out of another dimension or it's from space or whatever. I didn't get any sense that other than it was no different from a possum or a squirrel or anything else. It was an animal. Although it wasn't fidgety, it was a very calm creature. And I was really quite proud of myself that I wasn't freaked out after the initial moment of it. And I was frightened, but I wasn't terrified. And certainly once it had walked away, I was able to calmly look at it. Okay, so this is where it's going to get a little crazy. All right, fellas?
Ready. Oh, yeah.
So doing the radio show and having people on like Alex Jones, who stopped talking about these things, but very early on talked about them. Joe Rogan, who very early on would talk about these things. There's a guy named David Icke, who I became very good friends with. There's a guy named Jim Mars, who stayed at my house, who was a very good friend of mine. And he wrote Ruled by Secrecy. And they would talk about shapeshifters. Okay. There was another guy named Russo that wanted me to quit my job. He had produced, I think, the Lethal Weapon movies and wanted to go spread the word about a variety of things, some of which is coming to fruition right now. I don't want to get into politics, but some of the demonic and supernatural things that are happening in our country.
Yep.
So I think that my thinking and sitting here saying I think it was ancient may not have been from that moment, may have been from years of talking to these guys about their encounters with shapeshifters, reptilians, and whatever. And again, do I know about this? Do I believe it? I've done hundreds of interviews on this. I was going to do a book. I sold a book to a woman named Judith Regan about shapeshifters. Totally unrelated to my Bigfoot story. Never crossed my mind thinking about this. And these things are not like Bigfoot. They're always described as reptilian looking.
Right.
So, but everybody talks about how they were ancient. You could tell it was an old evil. Mm-hmm. And I think that is where my thoughts today go. Oh, I think it was ancient. That is my feeling. But I don't know if that's added on.
Like a remnant, maybe like something like.
My feeling is it was an ancient creature, that it was an old creature, hundreds of years old. And but I don't know if I thought. I don't think at the time I was thinking, oh, this is an ancient creature.
Well, I think there's something to say too about, I think there are many different types of these creatures because a lot of people describe them differently. Brown hair, black hair. Some of them say they're white.
There's white ones.
Yeah, tall, and they're different sizes. Some of them are shorter, some of them are huge and massive. And the ones in the south and near the swamps are more aggressive and mean. And some of them have been reported to save people. Some people have been trapped, and these things will rescue them. Like there's a couple famous ones on that. A kid was drowning. And this thing picked him up out of the creek put them on the side of the bank. So it's really strange. And then also, Mancow, is that these like 2 or 3 year old kids will go missing and they'll be in the woods for 3 or 4 days. And
I've heard those
and then all of a
stuff. Yeah.
Well, and then they'll ask the kid, how'd you make it? I mean, it was dipping down into temperatures that a kid couldn't survive on his own in the middle of the woods, right? Oh, well, this bear took care of me. It's like, so
there's no bears here. And by the way, there's no bears
that are taking
in that area.
No bears are taking care of kids either. Let's be honest. Yeah.
Well, that Baloo was pretty delightful.
A good voice.
I think there are Sasquatches that are in the shape-shifting realm. They're like that. And then there's Sasquatches that are just more on the primate scale. They're more of an animal or an ancient primate. You know what I mean? So I think that's why there's the hot debate about Sasquatch, because I think all the above are true. Just like there's many different types of all like cats and dogs. Like you would be surprised how much the diversity there is about the werewolf creature. Some people say they see him in the city. Some people say these things ripped apart their animals. And there's not one description of the werewolf, the dog man. If you think about this to Sasquatch, there could be so many different varieties of them that it just keeps it always confusing.
Well, I'll keep banging this drum. This was an animal.
Yeah, well, sure.
It was. Yeah, but I did think, and I also think that's a sign of intelligence. This thing wasn't like some feral freaking out at the dog and freaking out at me.
Yeah.
And what is that in my land here, my woods? It was completely dismissive and superior. And I thought, looking at it, looking at the leaf, I thought, this is smart. And then I think when it was calling out to the ridges up around the other side of the valley, the holler, as I said, and it called out, which I'll do. But I mean, I think it was looking for its mate or looking for a friend. And at the time, I did think it was looking for its mate. It was looking for someone else that spoke its language.
Let me ask you this. So when you said the face was humanoid, so when you say, I
wondered why you didn't ask me about that.
This is where I'm going.
We're getting there.
Yeah, I mean, we got to cover some ground here, but
normal nose, normal mouth, hair around it. When I say normal, I mean like humanoid.
So not ape-like, more human-like.
A broader nose, but a humanoid nose.
What color are the eyes?
And same color as the fur.
Are they like dark?
And I would tell you, I would say the fur was more like an Irish setter.
Okay.
My dog was copper colored. It was a Cocker Spaniel. This was more like a darker Irish setter. And I want to say something else that happened in those woods. I'm sure dime store psychologists will try to put these two together. It's nonsense, but go ahead. But I did encounter, again, partially the same series of cliffs, but on another cliff, I did experience a guy was sitting there and, hey, little boy, come here. And there's no doubt in my mind he was a creep. And there's no doubt in my mind that he had bad things planned for me. And he was in the middle of these woods, and we all played there. Hey, come here. Hey, are you alone?
Jeez.
Hey, can you help me? Come here. And I went and I ran.
Good for you.
And I was terrified all the way home. And I did not have that feeling with Bigfoot.
Interesting.
I did not have that feeling. I had initial.
Yeah.
So anyway, but what my point is, I've known fear. I've been around animals all my life. And even cows, even rabbits. I wasn't afraid of rabbits.
Right.
That's Monty Python. But no, they're look, I'm a carnivore.
It's no ordinary rabbit.
But there are we don't want to think this. I raised Black Angus cattle. I did it last year as well. Have you guys been around cattle and horses and stuff?
Backyard. Yeah.
Okay, so there are cows that are damn charming, and have the personality of a dog, and there are cattle that are bastards.
Yeah.
And if you just grow up and you have no concept of animals, or you're not around animals, you don't know this. I've had a cat that was a jerk. I mean, the devil. So I know good animals and bad animals.
Yeah.
And this thing I felt no threat from it. I still find that just so interesting. This big creature, far from home, in the middle of the woods, and he
was like a 75-year-old Squatch just on his way. And you were
or 750-year-old Squatch.
Whatever.
I think
I've never heard that
Squatch
term.
years.
I just
Hey, do I get a blurry? I was at this conference and I saw people wearing their T-shirts. Do I get a free?
We'll send you all kinds of stuff, bro.
I will wear that. I will wear that proudly.
We got you. You just got to send us your size and your email. But hey, I just think it's interesting, man. Because my one thought on this is, definitely an animal to you, but then the features are humanoid, which is a really interesting juxtaposition to me, because it's like if it feels very human, then you have this very animalistic. It's interesting.
Which is exactly what hunters describe. They can't shoot the thing because exactly what you're describing.
They line it up and it looks too human.
I think it was a peaceful creature. It meant me no harm. It meant no harm to my dog.
It didn't even harm a leaf.
Okay, so his eyes, are they like all black? Because they say these things have like at night
or dreamy.
Yeah.
Dreamy.
Sing a song to you.
Yeah, dreamy eyes.
No, I saw the whites of the eyes, and it had. I don't remember clearly the eyes, but I remembered having certainly dark eyes.
So you've never seen a trail cam photo or anything that's popped up on the internet that's even resembles this, or it's just like anything gets close?
Guys, I haven't been looking. I had this guy that I told you about. I think his name was Winslow, if I said it earlier. And he's working on it, and he sent me some pictures, and they all looked like, I don't know. Nothing came close. And then he sent me pictures of gorillas, Planet of the Apes and bears. And I said, no, it wasn't Planet of the Apes. It wasn't a bear.
Exactly.
But humanoid with hair, hair all over, shorter hair on the face, and dark red or brown hair.
And how long do you think you were looking at just his face? Like a good minute?
No, not. Yes, I saw it, but I saw the back and profiles as it turned and looked at the leaf. It was past me, but not far, when it stopped and it reached up to look at the leaf, but I could see the side of its face.
That's a cool story.
And it was looking around when it came by me, but it was matter of fact. See, I hate to feed into anything and add something that isn't here. But if you want to go with what one of our initial conversations was on the phone, which I thought was insane, just based on my experience. No, just on my experience, whatever.
Yeah.
That it was, that it's from outer space. But let's say that, okay, let's say it's from outer space. Okay, all of us together. Okay, anyway, it did have that look like it was in a strange land. It did behave like it was not. It was completely calm. It felt and it wasn't feral and looking around like I said, but it was assessing the situation, looking around. So if you want to go with this as a space explorer or just in from another dimension, it did move the way I would move if I was on a new planet.
Hey, I appreciate that. I appreciate you adding that fact in, because it's really hard to not bring your own thoughts into the conversation and say, well, this is what I think it is. So I'm gonna retell the story.
No, but it was surveying the land, and maybe it was just looking for its friend, or I felt mate, and then it jumped that little crick, as we would say, and then looked around and then called as it was looking around, and then took off. And it took off. It disappeared quickly. It ran off.
It's probably a good thing I didn't think you were its mate. It'd been a way different story.
God, it would have been such a good story, huh? Can you imagine the money I could have made? Whitley Strieber money, man, and communion money. Wasn't that his book? Whitley Strieber was on my show, and boy, did he tell some. He's a fascinating. You got to get him on. Have you had him on? Well, that's your next get. He had a space alien child that was climbing the side of his building, and he thinks it was his child when they had taken his DNA from when he was abducted, and that this half alien, half Whitley Strieber creature had come back to see him, and it was looking in his window, and he felt like a father bond, and I'm like, wow. So my story is very boring compared to some of the stories I've heard.
You got to connect. You got to give us a connection.
Whitley, well, you want to go through? I give you the number. I got to turn my phone back on. Okay, so I'll do it afterwards. But all
right,
Bob Gleason is his handler, so I'll get you Bob. And I don't. Would you look and see if Whitley Strieber is still alive? He wrote, I think, Communion.
Bob or Jack? Bob Gleason.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jackie, thank you.
I think Mancow, I think of all the paranormal stuff, I think Bigfoot's the great equalizer, because it's just weird enough, but it's not too weird that it gets people into this whole paranormal world. I'm not saying every single Bigfoot is riding UFOs and coming from outer space. I don't know. I'm just saying there's enough paranormal activity. Like when we interviewed Ron Moorhead early in the show, when there's these glowing orbs around them and they're talking to each other. They call it the samurai chatter. They have their own language. They don't act like animals. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like they're a different race.
Have you interviewed Robert Fleischman, the original lead singer of Journey, and he wrote Wheel in the Sky, and I think he still gets six figures.
We talked to Tim about it, and Tim said he didn't think he would want to come on our show and talk about his experiences.
You know, his stories are fascinating, and he's had stories with orbs. And
we'd love to interview him.
Someone close. Well, he was.
Wasn't he at the conference?
Yeah.
As well?
Oh yeah. He's very tortured by these things, and I know this. Because I know this, I was there. He has implants that look like little bits of amber under his flesh, and when he tries to get them removed, they move in the body. Now I don't know how good Milwaukee doctors are at removing alien implants, but there's something in them, and there's a reason he doesn't want to talk about it, and I respect his reason, and I shouldn't probably be sitting here talking about it right now. But he also talks about the orbs, and they come off the lake, they come across Lake Michigan, and he's seen them. But then again, also when, like I was going to say, a close family member died, there was my whole family saw it. I was not there, but these balls of light floated all over the room and whoosh, and they took pictures. So I mean, that's something that would be different than UFO. That would be
it's like a scout.
Yeah, that would be spiritual.
Well, some people say that these other entities are controlling creatures like Sasquatch. They use them, which is even wilder, but
oh, it's what a wonderful place we live in. I mean, I have no idea. And Timothy's, the Birthright book. I'm a Christian guy, and the stories of people, and I've done many. If I'm an expert on one thing in my life, other than the obvious stuff, love making, ask my wife, and radio and stuff. No. But thank you. That was for you. Was it Jackie Gleason? Yes, smartass. Is he still alive? He's 77. He's still alive. So we'll get Whitley on your show. That's the greatest space alien story, my favorite that I've ever heard. But I'm an expert on NDEs, near-death experiences. And when you talk to people that have had demonic encounters, they line up oftentimes with what I've heard from people that have UFO encounters. What are you swatting a fly? What were you just swatting?
Mosquito biting me in my studio.
Oh,
speaking of creatures.
Oh. Yes.
Speaking of demonic.
Yeah, those are demonic creatures.
It's like on my neck, driving me nuts. I'm like, I knew it's in here somewhere.
The book of Revelation talks about giant mosquito-like creatures in the end times. And you wonder, and by the way, our friend Timothy Alvarino, Birthright, thinks this is complete nonsense. But there's those of us that believe they're trying to open another dimension with that
CERN.
hydrogen
CERN.
CERN. And he's actually studied
particle
it.
Collider.
Say it again.
This is a large particle or large particle.
I've wondered if they're not going to open another dimension and unleash these things, and that's going to be the prophecy fulfilled. And he just thinks it's beyond stupid. So,
well, there's a lot of folks that do that. I mean, think that because they literally are experimenting with things in the other dimensions. They talk about it, which is, And then we did a whole episode on this, Mancow, and they put Shiva, this Indian god, a statue that's out. I saw it. There's a lot of weird. The destroyer, right? The destroyer.
Yeah.
God.
How about the UN with the rainbow cougar with the wings, and it's described in the book of Revelation.
Speaking of the Bible and Revelation, all these topics, we think a lot of times when you unpack what Sasquatch could be, it could be some sort of ancient Nephilim hybrid type of creature.
Wow.
Where, you had the giants, which was the human version of these two DNAs that weren't supposed to be together.
Right.
And you had this offspring that were, the David and Goliath story is not a one-time thing. It's a snapshot of decades and centuries of wars between human beings and these giant creatures. So perhaps all these ancient creatures that weren't supposed to be here, they were sort of, that creation was meddled with, that this could be some sort of remnant of some kind of ancient DNA experiment gone wrong.
See, this is why you host Blurry Creatures.
Oh yeah, right here.
That thought that is kooky, but I love it. And I thought you were going to say they're the two witnesses from the end times. Which would have been even kookier. Look,
that'd have been
I love the idea of it. I do believe in the Nephilim. I do believe that they are keeping that secret. I don't believe in the Cardiff Giant, which is one of my favorite hoaxes. But no, they're look at these doorways. Who are they for?
Yeah.
And I understand. I understand a man on horseback, but a man on 10 horses. Some of these doors.
We spent a lot of episodes
Big
talking
dudes.
about just. I mean, where you grew up, there's more giant mounds. These ancient mounds that they dug into and found skeletons. I mean, it's definitely not like. I mean, we spent a lot of time proving that the giants were real. They existed and they were all over the world, building similar structures and things.
Yeah. But I don't think they were Bigfoot.
No. But when the human DNA was corrupted, ancient human DNA. The Bible says they also mess with animals, plants, animals, species of all kinds were messed up. That's why God floods.
So they had sex with everything.
Yeah.
And so that's why God takes his humans and his animals, puts them on a boat, preserves his creations. Because
have you been to the Noah's Ark mock-up?
No, everybody talks about this. I haven't been. You take your kids, Nate?
Look, it's the exact measurements of the Bible. They have things like a Barabbas burger or whatever. They have hilarious things. T-shirts and stuff. But it proves that if you follow what's in the Bible from many thousands of years ago and you build this boat, you could hold a lot of animals.
Yeah.
And on the boat, they have mock-ups on this mock-up boat of Noah's Ark. Where's it at, guys? I know I drove there on my way to
Kentucky.
Dollywood. It's in Kentucky. And
it's in Kentucky.
And it's pretty cool to come over the hill and see Noah's Ark sitting there. It's bigger than you would have thought. It's magnificent to see. It's expensive, and I don't know if it's worth your time, but it's a Christian thing. It's probably not a bad thing for you to do. But it's funny as they have like dinosaurs in some of the stuff, which now they would have dinosaurs.
Just stay away from that Judas burrito.
Oh man, it'll come back to you. It'll come back to you. It'll turn on you. It'll turn on you. You'll want to hang yourself. You'll want to hang yourself. Yes.
Oh man.
So Mancow, after you see this creature, after you see Bigfoot, he runs off the hill.
Yes.
Your brothers don't believe you?
Listen, no. My dad started and they parodied it. They're like parents. They went out.
That's the hardest part of all these stories is nobody. Yeah. You can't tell anybody.
Well, my friends all believed me. These were stories that we had heard. They certainly all believed me. But my brothers were awful.
Yeah.
Think Chet from Weird Science.
Yeah.
High-fiving, and I'm 8 years old. There, one of them was 18, beating me bloody. Oh, well, that's what brothers do. And I have kids now, and I don't think that is what brothers do. I think they were really, in my opinion, just awful cretins. And I'm glad I got out of there.
Sad. That's hard.
It is sad. It is.
I love this conversation. It's like I want to have you back and talk about because this is definitely a standalone Bigfoot.
Okay.
Like Shapeshifters.
Yes.
Yeah. Dude, we need to go down that trail
well,
at some point.
And really the fascinating topic is NDEs and how that's been.
Yes, that too. We haven't talked about that.
Near-death experiences, how that has been stolen, and that movement has been stolen, and why? Because people that go to heaven, guys. If you're doing an NDE show, and I did them all the time, anyone that went to heaven wants to talk to you. They're endless. The people who went to hell, they don't want to talk. But when they do, it's horrific. And then there was another expert that was here involved with someone that's really, I can't go into it, and I can't explain why, but for all kinds of reasons. But did you send them my address? Because I want a Blurry Creatures t-shirt.
Yeah.
I'm an XL. I'm an XL, guys. Okay. So I want you had a green one, right?
We got black.
A green shirt?
No.
Okay.
No.
Anyway,
nope. We got black, blue.
Whatever. Anyway, black. Until they come up with a color that can make me skinnier, I'm sticking with black. But
Slimming. Yes.
Slimming, which I don't know. It seems to have lost its power. I think my wife doesn't know how to wash anymore because the clothes seem to be getting smaller. It really happened during the plague. So there was a so-called expert on near-death experiences, and he sat there and he said, "There's no hell. Hitler's in heaven. There's Charles Manson's in heaven. You don't have to worry. You do whatever you want." And I could just, C.S. Lewis says it's the fool that sees demons everywhere. It's the fool that sees them nowhere. I'm paraphrasing, but I don't see demons everywhere. But boy, was this a demonic deal. So yeah, there are various places you can go to, and hell is real through a lifetime of study, and you don't want to be there. I also knew Father Gabriel Morth, and Russell Crowe's new movie is out, and that's greatly sensationalized. I was also very close with Malachi Martin. You want to read a great book up there with Alberino's Birthright. I bought it 8 times and threw it away 8 times. I think the 9th or 10th time I finally could finish it. It's so terrifying. But Malachi Martin was a regular in the Art Bell show. And he had done exorcisms, and he was next in line to be the Pope. He had several bestsellers, but if you want to read a book, read Hostage to the Devil.
Okay.
And I only say that so that it'll bring you closer to God, not push you away. But that is terrifying. Hostage to the Devil, Malachi Martin.
That's what we try to do on our show. Okay. That's what Blurry Creatures has sort of become. We help people kind of understand the paranormal experiences in modern day and ancient times, because it's easy to think that these are just the ancient people just thought about the cosmos and the world differently than we do now, because we have science and we understand everything, right? So, but then the weird paranormal stuff is still happening. People like you are still growing up. They're seeing creatures that shouldn't exist, whether it's some sort of...
I don't know. Look, we had trail cameras. I don't know why there's no pictures. I don't know why they've been caught. Yeah. I don't understand it. I don't know. And guys, there is, if you look at a textbook, a junior high textbook from the 40s, it's a college level book now. I'm sending my daughters off. I have twin daughters, sending them off to college. And I mean, the level of everything is it's been dumbed down. But every generation since the beginning of mankind believes that they're smart and the past generation was stupid. So we do this at our own peril. There be monsters here. They're really on the outside of the maps, right? There be monsters here. There really are things out there that we don't understand. And I had an encounter with one.
Well, dude, it's part of that time. You're gonna give us this. You're gonna give us what it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm gonna really try to do it. And I'm not hamming it up. It's very tough to do, and I could do it as a kid, and I don't have the voice for it anymore.
Wow.
And it trailed on like that, and it had higher. It had higher. I can't do it anymore, but it had a higher pitch.
Yeah, probably pre-puberty. It's probably a little easier to get that high note.
And then looked around, and I don't know if it got a signal or it got spooked, but it took off. And that was
you have heavy compression sound gate on your mic. Otherwise, we would have heard it. We would have blown out our speakers. But from those listening, it was it's that typical Sasquatch call where it
is.
It just sounds like, and that's what hunters say. Are people?
It had a long ending.
Yeah.
It.
Did you feel it in your bones when you heard it? Did you feel it in your chest?
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember what I felt, but I remember the sound clearly in my head. That's as close as I can do to reproduce it. I've never had anyone tell me that they've heard another one. I've never heard another one. If you're telling me that's what other people do, that fascinates me. That you're saying that's similar to other sounds you've heard, because I've never heard a sound like it. I've never heard anyone tell me that. Nor have I ever.
Well, like the Finding Bigfoot show, they'd go out there and they would try to redo Sasquatch calls. Like Bobo would be like,
they do more whoops and stuff in that one though.
Yeah.
Sasquatch it's
great. Try to call them in. Trying to get them in.
There's a whole network of people who get really nerdy about this, and they go out and they spend their whole life looking for Sasquatch, and they have
Well, I wish I could give them my experience.
Well, yeah.
I mean, someone that's that into it.
They'd take it in a heartbeat.
Oh,
I mean,
the Bigfoot scientist, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, is yet to see a Sasquatch, and he has all the tracks.
It's like 10,000 casts or something crazy.
It's like me as a boy looking at Playboy.
Exactly.
The wonder. There's just the wonder.
Yeah. So he's like a foot morphologist. He understands. Yeah. So his whole thing is like, look, you can't recreate these casts. This isn't something that somebody just 3D printed and put it in the ground. This is like a living creature based on the evidence. And if you study footprints, you know these things. But what I'm saying is that seeing a Sasquatch it's rare, but it also happens quite a lot to random people. It's almost like the experience chooses you. You don't choose the experience. You can't go out and find him. He finds you.
I'm, sitting here tonight, I'm glad that it happened. And I didn't realize what a gift I was given. And I'm glad you put it in perspective. And I'm glad to know that is a sound that I will also say, thinking of it and look in my mind's eye, looking at it, it did look like, I wouldn't be surprised if the memory, included him turning and talking to me. I mean, it looked like it had that kind of intelligence, but it was an animal. It was not a clean thing. It was not Anyway,
but think about how that experience probably might have changed your life, because you go into radio, you interview people who've had weird experiences, who tell weird stories, and in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I saw something too. So it helps expand your own perspective. So when people tell you weird stuff, you don't immediately just say, you're nuts, you're crazy. So I mean,
I was part of exorcisms. I was we eyewitnessed a satanic ritual, which I got tipped off, and we went out and saw that. I think you can probably find that online. And then there was a UFO landing that would probably be another show. So we've got other things to talk about.
That's what I was going to ask you, man. Like, when we're closing this thing out, like,
I had so much fun. I'd be glad to.
What are you up to these days, man? What can people engage with what you're doing? Like,
I'm just over 6 foot. And,
before taxes.
Wow. I started in 1984.
Yeah.
And I got up every day at 2:30 in the morning. And 2:30. No, it was it for me. I did it. I'm in a movie called Death Wish, which people seem to hear a lot about that with Bruce Willis. And, I did a lot of radio, TV, a couple of movies. And I have children, and I've been enjoying them the last couple of years. I do a podcast, which I guess I can pimp now, which is available on Spotify. I had 2 million people a week, and they took those away because I made a joke about Biden, and they said he's not a pedophile, which I never said that. Fact checkers have determined Biden's not a pedophile. I think I showed him sniffing a kid's hair, and they took away 2 million people. And then I got it back up to 177,000 and showed a picture of Hunter Thompson in a boa, nothing X-rated in either of these pictures. And they said, the Hunter Biden laptop has been debunked. And by the way, both of these I challenged, and they said, oh, you're right. No, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Well, can I have my 2 million back? Can I have my 177,000 back? Can I have no.
Wow.
So active censorship is also way worse than I experienced in the radio, which shocks me. AI or whatever it is, that wants whatever agenda they want. I'm not part of it. And you're not part of the agenda if you ask questions.
100%.
I saw somebody sent me a funny cartoon, and it was the news media saying, hey, we want you to know you've been lying. We've been lying to you. The news reporter goes, we've been lying to you. And the person at home goes, no, you haven't.
Yeah.
And that's the world in which we find ourselves. I've always asked questions and been curious, which, by the way, reminds me, I do think that all women are by the way. But I mean bipolar. At least the ones I've known.
There he is.
At least the ones I've known. It's a joke, ladies.
Dude, I love it.
It's a joke, for God's sakes. Got daughters.
What about Sasquatch women? What do you think? Does Bigfoot have a lady out there?
Much like Kardashians, very hairy.
I was
very hairy.
Going to go there.
Very hairy.
I was going to say Eastern Bloc Europeans,
But I'm telling you, 70s, as a child of the 70s, I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're still waiting for that encounter, Mancow, where someone says they saw two Bigfoot making out in the woods. It hasn't happened yet. So
there's got to be. I mean, there's Spock and Kirk fan fiction, and Riker and Picard fan fiction where they're. And I got to think there's got to be out there fan fiction where there's two Bigfoot lovers.
Well, they're breeding, because
actually, if I was going to make a movie about Bigfoot lovers, it'd be you two.
No. Now we're just
Now we all laugh and we freeze the frame, and that's the end of the show.
Oh man,
this was fun. Thanks for coming on, man. This is.
Let me know. Let me know how it goes, and keep having fun, guys. It's
What's
a
your
fun
podcast?
show.
What's your podcast called?
What is it, Mancow Podcast, Spotify? It's everywhere.
Okay.
It's everywhere.
Right.
And I do it. I'm off to Peru for a month, and I was with the Smashing Pumpkins in Nashville, and so I do. It's supposed to be every Monday. I do it about once every month or two.
Are you going with Tim to Peru?
I am not. Okay. I am not.
We are in June.
You are just going to miss me, and I talked to Timothy about this, and I am going to do some archaeological stuff, which my wife finds hysterical. But
Indiana Muller.
Indiana Mancow. But the real reason I'm going to Peru, other than the sights and this dig, is my children. I raise guinea pigs, and they are the most insufferable little creatures.
Delicious.
They are horrible. And as you know, 3 to a skewer in Peru.
In Peru, they eat them. Yeah.
And I cannot wait to pick up a little guinea pig leg and just eat it and pick my teeth with it. Professor Cuddles. Isn't that the cutest little creature?
They're going to know.
They have special hay. They're smelly.
They're going to know when you come back, man. They're going to be like, he's eating one of us. You're going to stay away from that guy.
Girls, come here. I'm going to be plump from guinea pig. No, I really can't wait to eat one of these little bastards.
That's it? All the way there? All the way
Bless.
there?
That's it.
Bless.
Good to see you, brother.
One of the reasons.
Thank you.
Mancow.
Thank you.
I'll wear my shirt with
All right,
pride.
buddy.
We'll send it out tomorrow. We'll get it out to you.
I want it tonight.
Well, we'll get it on DHL. See if they can get there quick.
He's doing his call.